joins late, please let me know. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with Emergency Ordinance 20 TAC Alpha 16, an emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are Tom Thorpe, myself, Robert Finley, David Storm, Diane Grider, Roger Schickadance, Craig Roller, Karen Davenport, Supervisor Andrews, Supervisor Price, Commissioner Firehawk, and county staff, Tori Kanopoulos and Carolyn Schaefer. The persons responsible for receiving public comment are the 5th and Avon Community Advisory Committee. The opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted in the Albemarle County calendar, and we already covered the county staff present. The first order of business is to ask the committee members if they've had the opportunity to review the minutes from last month's meeting and if there's any corrections that we need to note.
I didn't see any.
If not, I propose that we adopt the minutes as written.
So moved.
Great. Thank you, everybody. The next item on our agenda is officer elections, but before we get to that, I see Emma has joined. And Emma, I wonder if you wouldn't be so kind as to just briefly unmute and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm so happy to be here. My name's Emma Andrews. I live in Scottsville. I have a little goat farm in Scottsville. I am also on the Natural Heritage Board, or the Natural Heritage Committee for Albemarle County, and I'm excited to work with you all.
Great, thank you so much, Emma. And I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize our other new member, Supervisor Andrews. Jim, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting briefly and introducing yourself to those of us who haven't read your bio already.
All right. Hi, Emma. I don't think we're related, but nice to meet you. I'm the newly elected representative to the Samuel Miller District. Tori, do you maintain the webpage for the 5th and Avon?
I assist with that, yes.
Okay, so it's got to be fixed because it still has Liz's name on there.
Yes. And Rick Randolph's name too.
I think that might be fixed. I'm not sure, but in any event, thank you. And yes, I was just elected in November. I am a retired physics professor, but I went to law school, practiced law for a while, and that's where I first came to Charlottesville in 1979, where I met my wife, who we've now been married 40 years, and she was born and raised in the Samuel Miller District. So those are my ties to the area, and I'm really happy to be a part of this.
Great. Hey, thanks so much, Jim. The next item on our agenda is one I've been eagerly anticipating for about 23 months. We're going to nominate new chair. We only do this every 2 years, so I will sort of provide a brief overview before we get into the process. I'll open the floor here in a minute and ask for nominations. That can be anybody. It can be yourself. It probably will be yourself, I would imagine, if you're interested in that role. We'll ask for that nomination to be seconded. We'll pause there and see if there's any other nominations. If there's only one nomination, we'll put that up to a vote. If it's only one nomination and it's unanimous, we don't need to do a roll call. If there are multiple nominations, we will do a roll call and ask each person to vote. And we're going to repeat that process for the vice chair and for the secretary positions. Before we launch into it, are there any questions about the process? Or Tori, did I screw any of that up?
I wanted to say that I think it should be annually. We skipped a year of elections, but technically the procedures that Tori sent out say that we will elect new officers annually.
You're absolutely right. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Roger?
I have a comment. Yeah, when the committee was first started, Liz Palmer brought up the issue that there was debate among the supervisors about whether to break it into two, one for 5th Street and one for Avon Street extended. And at the time, we all voted to just keep it as one committee, but to have a chair representing each side so that there were co-chairs. And for some reason, that never got put into the rules of procedure. but it operated that way through the first term. And then when Dave Storm and I shared the next go round, it worked pretty well for us because we were able to alternate meetings, chairing meetings, and it took the pressure off of one person. So if that's allowed, I would encourage that to be done, but I think it has to go back to Tori to see if the rules of procedure prevent that at this point.
I am not sure offhand, but if I remember correctly, reading through the rules of procedure, I believe the CAC can move to change them if they want within, the typical constraints of things like FOIA and Robert's Rules of Order. But if there's interest in having two chairs and switching off, I think that would be okay.
Roger, would you like to propose that we nominate co-chairs instead of a single chair?
Yeah, I would like to propose that. Do I need to make that a formal motion?
That sounds formal enough to me. Is there anybody who seconds that motion?
I'm really sorry, I missed the motion. What did he say?
To have a co-chair relationship between one representing Avon Street side and one representing the Fifth Street side.
I guess I'll just say that when I remember when I took over that I did not really have the capacity to be a co-chair, but I was fine being vice chair. And so I think that might be why we switched back, is just because, you kind of felt okay doing the chair position solo. And I do think that you and I are on opposite sides.
Yeah, my own personal perspectives, I feel like having a dedicated chair worked well because I'm maybe a little more familiar with doing it, but MK certainly stepped up extremely capably on the occasions that I wasn't here. But that said, it's not my decision. Tom.
Would that still have one vice chair and two chairs? There's not two vice chairs. Would that require?
Actually, when we did it that way, no, we just had two co-chairs. We didn't have a vice chair.
All right. That was just a matter of structure.
Semantics, maybe.
Diane?
I'm just questioning, what would the purpose be? Are you saying that there's just so much work, Roger? You mean to advocate for the Fifth Street versus the Avon side of the house, or?
It was just to give equal representation to both neighborhoods as an official position. And it ended up allowing the work to be shared. So I thought that was a benefit. And so like Dave and I would have regular meetings to plan the agenda and to meet with our planning commissioner. And I don't know how that's happened in Jim's chairmanship, but it worked well for us. So I was just raising it.
Okay, thanks.
Would anybody like to second Roger's motion to put it to a vote?
Oh, wait, I need to take my hand out. Oh,
Tom, you're on mute if you're talking.
No, I forgot to take my hand down. Boomer. All right, well, I'll second it to put it to a vote because I have a lot of respect for Roger, and Roger has experienced this, and I think it deserves something to be considered by the group.
Okay. Those committee members who are in favor of co-chairs from.
Can we have one more discussion, James?
Yeah, absolutely. MK.
Sorry, I should have waited to discuss until we had a second. I apologize. I'm jumping ahead of Robert's rules. I like the idea, but I don't know that I feel that we need to be married to that idea, because we may find that the volunteers we have this time prefer the original way. I think I might be more inclined to say leave it up to, we might do it one way one time and one the next, but that might just be me.
Thanks, MK. Craig, you have some input?
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say is, I mean, two co-chairs worked. I mean, I joined it when Roger and David were the co-chairs. It works if you have two people willing to volunteer.
Fair. That's how I ended up in this position.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we usually ask for volunteers, and the last person to step backwards is you're it. So, I mean, if we have two people willing to do it, then that's fine. It was a great concept, but if we don't have two people willing to serve as co-chairs, then we should go with the one chair and one vice chair.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that input. Roger, anything else to add before we put that to a vote?
Yeah, I would just say that when I volunteered to serve as co-chair, it made it easier for me to do that, knowing that I was sharing the responsibility. So just in counter to what Craig mentioned.
Yep. So let's put it to a vote. If you're in favor of Roger's proposal to have chair and co-chair, I guess, Roger, is it fair to say pending if we have two volunteers for that position, one from each side, please raise your hand on your screen and we'll tally those votes.
Sorry, I lost my.
No worries. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I believe that's a quorum of what we have here. So we will proceed under Roger's recommendation that we elect a chair from each side. So Tori, I'm gonna play this on the fly right here, if that's okay with you, and do a request for a nomination first from the 5th Street side. So if you could please unraise your hands. And then if you're interested in volunteering to be the 5th Street chair, please unmute your mic and identify yourself.
Is this a one-year term?
I think we've established it is a 1-year term. However, Craig, I will say from personal experience, sometimes that gets extended.
Very much aware of that, James.
So I, as a 5th Street person, will volunteer to continue to be vice chair. Which means occasionally I have to be the chair, but I probably can't commit to 50% of chair role.
Okay, we'll give it another minute so everybody's suitably uncomfortable. If you feel like you're capable of being the 5th Street chair, please let me know in the next 60 seconds or so. Otherwise, we'll, Roger, I think we'll probably go back to the original form, but let's give that some time for us to stew in that for a while and see if anybody wants to be the 5th Street chair.
James, while I'm not volunteering again, I know that at least 2 5th Street people aren't here, right? So Sean and Caitlin both. So I'm okay with proceeding, but is there a way we could reopen this next month if they are both in attendance to see if they would be willing to serve? I don't want to nominate either of them in absentia, although that's the other way you get volunteered for things is if you're not there.
Yeah, Sean has affirmatively let it be known that he will not volunteer. So I think we can cross that off the list. And my preference, somebody's always going to be absent or typically going to be absent. So my preference is to proceed even given Andrew's absence.
That's fine.
All right, before we move to sort of the original motion, let's go back to the other side and say, are there anybody on the Avon Street side who would volunteer to serve as a co-chair?
Don't everybody jump at one time.
Maybe I've failed to adequately express how much satisfaction this job gives.
I nominate Andrew.
That's great, MK, but Andrew unfortunately is not here to accept the decline.
Dang.
Well, I think it's unlikely given the lack of enthusiasm for doing either one of the positional chairs. But let me put this out there for the group. Please consider if you'd be willing to serve as chair for the entire 5th and Avon CAC.
All right, I feel like James needs a break. So you want a break, James?
Yes, I would appreciate that.
Okay. So I will do it, so you get a break.
Thank you. I enthusiastically second MK as the next chair of the 5th and Avon CAC. By show of hands, can we put this to a vote? Yeah, that appears to be unanimous. Congratulations, MK.
Thank you.
Is there anybody who would consider serving as vice chair for the upcoming year? Tom and Craig, I assume your hands are raised on MK's vote, and that's not an affirmative response to serving as vice chair.
I think both of them would do admirably as vice chair, though.
As would you, sir.
I've done my time, but thank you.
Is it worth seeing if Caitlin or Andrew are interested?
Tori, is that something that's okay with you if we punt the role of vice chair and reach out to them individually to see if that would be something they'd be interested in?
I think that's fine.
Okay, let's defer vice chair for now. And finally, the most important position, certainly from Tori's perspective, do we have somebody to volunteer to be a recorder for our meetings?
Let me just be clear, like James, 2 years of this fun, I feel like someone else should have an opportunity.
So can you explain to me what the recorder position actually does? Take minutes of the meeting?
Yep, take the minutes of each meeting, you forward them on to the chair and to Tori before the next meeting. And that's basically it. And then if there's any corrections from the next meeting, you'd have to go in and revise them and then have the revised minutes posted. But Tori does the posting. You just have to take the minutes and type them up and email them to her and the chair.
Okay. I could do that.
And it is recorded, correct? And the recording becomes available when, Tori?
Usually a couple days after the meeting, it gets posted online to the county website.
A couple of days after the meeting?
Yeah, I usually post it on Mondays, Monday morning, first thing.
Yeah, and Rick Randolph, when I first joined the meeting, joined the committee, he said that then it should be a executive summary type, not a word for word, blow by blow. So
Right.
you're capturing a summary of what happened, not each and every quote and every word that's said in the meeting. So
Right.
That helps a little bit.
Okay. I can do that. I volunteer.
Donna?
Thank you. The only thing I would add, Diane, is there is an annual report that's due by each committee. It's not that complicated. It's basically sort of a compilation of attendance and some things like that. And our clerk's office will help you with the details of that. It's not I don't think it's particularly time consuming, but I'm not presuming who does it, but for our chair and the report, it is an annual.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Donna.
Craig looks confused, so maybe someone else does it.
I'm assuming someone else does it because this is the first I've actually heard of this.
I think Carolyn actually did most of the work on them this year, but the minutes are really helpful because it's important to see the attendance and the main topics that were covered. So they are used to put that report together. So very useful for that.
And actually, the clerk's office had not required compliance with that in previous years, but 2021 was the first year that we really have gotten full compliance. So it's, baby steps in getting these things organized. Thank you.
Right.
Just to clarify, I do those. I'm the one that takes care of meetings for the Board of Supervisor.
Oh, thank you,
annual
Carolyn.
report.
Well, there you go, Diane. I just, thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
You complicated and then simplified Diane's role.
Right.
Thank you for all that feedback. I second Diane's nomination, and once again, by show of hands, can we confirm that? Great. It appears to be unanimous. Congratulations to MK and Diane.
Hey, Diane, I'll go ahead and do today's meeting. If you can start in February.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
And sincere thank you to both of you. And we will revisit for vice chair. So please keep that on your radar for next week or for next month rather. But I'll let MK handle that once Andrew or Caitlin are back in the pool. The other order of business, given sort of the new members, and I was hoping Caitlin would be here, but we wanted to do, new calendar year, new start, just an overview of what the CAC does, what our role in the civic process is, how the master plan impacts that, how the small area plans impact that. And Tori very kindly volunteered herself to lead that discussion. So Tori, over to you.
Thank you, James. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up the presentation. And good that it's recorded so that anyone who was not able to attend this evening can still go back and take a look. So my name is Tori Kenelopoulos, and I'm the planning staff liaison for the CAC. I've been at the county for about 4 years, and I'm on the long range planning team. So this evening we'll cover the role of the CAC and CAC requirements, including procedures and FOIA, and then also cover both long range planning, the zoning ordinance, and development applications. So the CACs have several roles, which include holding community meetings for rezonings and special use permits, assisting with master plan updates and new small area plans, and assisting with implementation for special projects such as capital improvement projects. The CACs are an important venue for discussion and providing feedback, although CACs do not have a legislative role in the development process. CACs may also serve a public engagement role by keeping their community informed of current projects and applications and providing information at CAC meetings about topics of interest or concern in their community. There are currently 7 CACs that cover the county's 5 development areas, and there are 3 CACs for the Places 29 area, as this covers a large geographic and population area. The rules of procedure are the same for all of the CACs, and the purpose, roles, and responsibilities. The number of members and lengths of term vary by CAC. So 5th and Avon typically meets on the 3rd Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. and has up to 15 CAC members with term lengths of 2 years and term limits of 3 terms. Meetings will continue to be held virtually for the foreseeable future, and county staff will keep the CACs updated if locations are revised. So as we just covered with the elections, there are 3 elected roles for the CACs. The chair coordinates with me as the liaison each month to set the agenda for the next meeting. The CAC can also discuss topics of interest at their meetings to help set upcoming agendas. The chair facilitates discussions, which include community meetings that have both CAC members and members of the public participating. The vice chair assists the chair as needed and runs the meeting if the chair is unable to attend. The secretary takes meeting minutes, which can be a very high level, and sends those minutes to the chair to distribute to other CAC members so that members can review for corrections before the next meeting. And the secretary also sends adopted meeting minutes to me to upload to the county website. Each CAC is made up of community members who either live within the CAC area or have other connections, such as owning a business in the CAC area. 5th and Avon includes Commissioners Karen Firehawk and Fred Missel as the planning liaisons, and Supervisors Donna Price and Jim Andrews as the Board of Supervisors liaisons. The Planning Commission and Board liaisons give updates as needed from the Commission and Board meetings on topics and projects that may be of interest to the group. CACs usually meet monthly for about an hour and a half, and they may meet more or less frequently as needed, depending on current topics and projects. And there's usually 1 yearly joint meeting with all of the CACs together. The typical agenda structure is to call the meeting to order, approve minutes from the previous meeting, have scheduled presentations, which may be from county staff or another entity, have commission and board updates, and finally any other business such as discussion of potential future agenda items. A majority of appointed CAC members must be present to establish a quorum, which is required for any committee actions such as approving meeting minutes or electing officers. And this is the main webpage for the 5th and Avon CAC on the county website. This includes links to upcoming and past meetings, as well as rules of procedure, committee info, and fact sheet. And Carolyn is awesome and let me know she went ahead and updated the contact information. So this information should be updated publicly on the website shortly. Since CACs are appointed by the Board of Supervisors, they are subject to the regulations of the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. And under FOIA, a meeting occurs when 3 or more members of a CAC meet for the purpose of conducting business. Agendas for CAC meetings must be posted at least 3 business days prior to the meeting. All CAC meetings are open to the public, and minutes must be taken during the meeting, which include the date, time, location, members present and absent, and a summary of the discussions. Please note that per FOIA, emails may also be considered meetings when 3 or more members are discussing CAC business, especially if the discussion is in real time and is becoming detailed. So for example, if the CAC members are just sending out agendas or replying with topics of interest, that would not be a meeting. However, if 3 or more members were emailing back and forth to draft a memo, that would likely be considered a meeting and should not be conducted over email, but should be discussed at the next CAC meeting. So now we'll transition over to talk about long-range planning, which includes the comp plan, master plans, and small area plans. The state of Virginia requires localities to have a comprehensive plan for the development of their city or county and requires it to be reviewed every 5 years. The 5-year updates may either be an update to one chapter or a section of the comp plan, or maybe a full revision. The comp plan is a guiding document for growth, development, and investment in the county. The plan has recommendations for how and where the county should grow, supporting local businesses and industry, protecting and enhancing natural resources, providing transportation options for walking, biking, transit, and driving, and allowing and encouraging a variety of housing types. The plan is used to guide decisions on public infrastructure and funding, plans and programs, and review of some development applications. The comp plan also contains the master plans and small area plans. The comp plan is organized by chapter, and each chapter contains specific goals, which are supported with objectives and strategies to implement the goals. And one of the main components of the county's comp plan is the growth management policy, which directs the majority of new residential growth and economic development to the 5% of the county's land that is within the designated development areas and reserves the remaining 95% of the land as rural area. The rural area is intended to be primarily for agriculture and forestry uses, natural resources, and some residential uses. Development in the development areas is expected to meet the 12 neighborhood model principles, which are outlined in the comp plan, and include a variety of housing types and affordable housing, walkability, multiple modes of transit, and regulated parking. There are also master plans for each of the development areas as shown on this map. So for this CAC, the applicable master plan is the Southern and Western Master Plan, which is within the comp plan and has recommendations for land use, transportation, and parks and trails for this CAC area. This area is also referred to as neighborhoods 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the comp plan. The master plan was adopted along with the comp plan in the 2015 update. When reviewing rezonings and special use permits in the 5th and Avon CAC area, planning staff refer to the recommendations in both the comp plan and the Southern and Western Master Plan. Recommendations in the plan are also implemented through county projects such as sidewalks, trails, parks, and road improvements. So now we'll transition to talk about the zoning ordinance, which, unlike comp plans and master plans, the zoning ordinance is not a guiding document, but it is a regulatory document and is a local ordinance. Requirements in the zoning ordinance must be met, although some are permitted to be waived either by staff, the commission, or the Board of Supervisors. The zoning ordinance contains a variety of zoning districts. Some are entirely residential, commercial, or industrial, while others are mixed use. The zoning district of a property regulates the permitted uses and form and density of buildings on the site, such as height, setbacks, and the maximum number of units. So zoning includes both text and maps. The zoning map, which is accessible on the county's GIS site, shows the zoning district of every property in the county. The zoning ordinance, which is accessible on the county's website as County Code Chapter 18, has the requirements of the ordinance, including specific regulations for each zoning district. There are also requirements for site plans, special use permits, and rezonings. So now we'll move to development review applications and where long-range planning and zoning come into play with those. So there are two main types of development review, administrative and legislative. Within the administrative reviews, there are several types of applications, including site plans, subdivision plats, and easement plats. Site plans and subdivision plats can only be approved for uses allowed by right in the existing zoning district. And if a use is not already allowed by right, a rezoning or special use permit is needed prior to plan or plat approval. If a use is allowed by right and the application for the site plan or the plat meets all county and state requirements, staff cannot legally deny the application. Site plans are required for any commercial or industrial use and also for multifamily housing and any attached housing such as townhouses. Both county staff and external reviewers such as VDOT and the Service Authority review site plans for compliance with applicable regulations. This includes for zoning, stormwater management, safe site access, and connections to existing public infrastructure such as roads and utilities. Site plans show building footprints, but they do not show the internal details of a building. This is done with building permits, which are reviewed after plan approval. Subdivision plats are required to create new lots. And similarly to site plans, they are reviewed by appropriate staff to ensure they are in compliance with all applicable regulations, which also includes the subdivision ordinance in Chapter 14 of County Code. Rezonings or zoning map amendments are applications to change the zoning district of a property. A property owner may submit a rezoning application if they want to have a certain use, housing type, or density that is not permitted with the current zoning district on their property. If a rezoning is approved, the applicant may then move to any required site plans or subdivision plats. Special use permit applications are needed when a use is permitted by special use in the existing zoning district. These are uses that may cause more impacts than the by right uses in that zoning district. Special use permits can have conditions to mitigate the impacts of the use, such as limited hours of operation. So the review process for rezonings and special use permits is called the legislative review process. And when staff reviews these applications, they write a staff report with a recommendation, which is based on ordinance criteria, including consistency with the comp plan, consistency with the master plan, whether the application is meeting the purpose and intent of the requested zoning district, and whether potential impacts are being mitigated. The Planning Commission holds a public hearing and provides a recommendation, and the Board of Supervisors holds a public hearing and votes to approve or deny the application. And in this process, the CAC's role is to host and facilitate the community meeting. For community meetings, for projects within the development areas, letters are mailed out to properties within 500 feet of the proposed project. For the Planning Commission, letters are only mailed to adjacent properties, and for board meetings, no letters are mailed. So the lead planner reviewer for projects will keep a list of community members who want to stay updated on a project and will email out updates and upcoming public hearings. So to put it all together, this slide shows the development review process with any required legislative approvals at the beginning, then moving to any needed site plans and subdivision plats. Once those are approved, building permits are submitted and reviewed. And once those are approved, construction can start. And as construction moves along, inspections are done for the building and the site. And once completed, a certificate of occupancy is issued for each building once that building is safe to occupy and use. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to try to answer any questions or let you all discuss. Thank you.
Tori, that presentation was extremely crisp. Either that's something you give a lot or you rehearsed it a ton. Really well done. And I see a couple of questions already. First hand I saw was Roger's.
Am I off mute? Yep. Thanks, Tori. I have a question about the comprehensive plan update. It is being updated in 2020 or sorry, 2021. Is that right? Or no, sorry, I'm way behind. 2022. I was looking at the 5 years from 2015 and adding on 5, which got me to 2020. But I think the process is happening this year, correct?
That is correct. So there have been other updates along the way. For example, the Biodiversity Action Plan was adopted in 2018. So that is technically an amendment or an update to the plan. But this update that's starting now is for the entire plan. So that'll be a much more significant update, and that process is just kicking off.
So my real question is, how do we as a CAC get involved in the update for the southern and western neighborhoods? Will we have a position on the committee, or is there some way we'll be presented with drafts as they occur? Is there some process?
That's a good question, and we're still pretty early in the process. We're actually working on getting a website set up now, so hoping to have that done by the end of this month. And there will be a variety of engagement opportunities coming up, things like pop-ups, online surveys, online meetings, and opportunities for engagement. But I don't know that I have a more detailed answer quite yet on that.
Yeah, I hope that the CAC would have some review role in that, to be able to see a presentation and provide comments and hopefully have some influence on how that develops.
Roger, that sounds like an awesome item that we can sort of tabulate. We've got a whole agenda section for future items for discussion. I absolutely agree with you that it would be really nice to be sort of have a seat at the table when that discussion happens.
Well, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turns, Karen, but I will just say, as the chair of the Planning Commission, that you shall have a role, and we will make sure that that happens. So I
Thank you,
can
Karen.
speak for the Planning Commission on that one.
Great.
Very
The
good.
board can
Thank you.
decide what the board decides, but I'm managing the Planning Commission.
And as a board member, I will tell you, this is actually going to be a multi-year process. It won't all be done in 2022.
Thanks, Jim. MK, I think I saw your question next.
Thank you. Sorry, and I apologize if I cough. My question is very kind of general, and maybe this is just feedback for staff and supervisors and commissioners, but I have always felt that the 500-foot notification rule was insufficient. Just as a layperson, even before I was on this committee, like if you happen to live a quarter mile down the road from a property that's about to be developed and you're not on the CAC, then you may not know anything of it. And so I'm just curious, is that in our code? Like, is that something that's in the code of Albemarle? Is that a state requirement? Is that something that could be increased at some point?
I was trying to look if I could find it quickly. I might not be able to. I can't remember offhand if it's a requirement or not, but I think it might be more discretionary. And I think in the rural areas, it's a quarter mile or a half a mile. It's definitely a greater distance. And I will say too, the lead planner usually tries to pick up, within reason, like an entire street or neighborhood, if part of it got picked up, to try to expand that. So they do look at the map, and they don't necessarily just stop with whatever the GIS picks up with 500 feet as well.
Okay, I mean, that's helpful. I mean, I've noticed before where it's like just the, adjoining property members, basically, the direct adjacent properties. And I don't know, I can just think of situations where in my opinion, more feedback from the community at that step of the process is better than less feedback and people who get angry later because they didn't know, they weren't paying attention or whatever. But that's just a comment.
MK, I would say to that we have the ability to reach out through homeowners associations and social media, like Nextdoor or Facebook. I know there's a Facebook Avon neighborhood page, and in the past we've advertised meetings through those outlets to let people know that public hearings are coming up. So we can always do that.
Diane, I think you're up.
Yes, thanks again, Tori. I'm just trying to understand the process a little, and because I'm kind of a concrete person, let me give you a concrete example. So I'm clear, this is my second year on the CAC, about our role in all this. So as you know, a couple months ago, we were discussing the proposal for rezoning on Avon for new housing that's multiple housing that's now currently about a 3-acre parcel with 2 houses on it, right opposite Lake Rainovia, the neighborhood I live in. And so it was great. We had the whole presentation here, and the CAC raised some really, I thought, important points, especially around the VDOT study for the traffic impact of this new development that was conducted during COVID, at the height of COVID, when nobody was going up and down Avon Street, right? And so they said it wasn't valid. They really thought that that would be something that should be looked at, et cetera, et cetera. So then I got the notice, as we were just talking about, from Andy Reidelbach, is that saying his name correctly? About the Planning Commission meeting. And so I tried to, just as you're suggesting, Roger, rally the troops through the HOA association here at Lake Rainovia and Mill Creek and make sure people were informed. And I sent information and I told them about the Planning Committee meeting, et cetera, Planning Commission. And so at the Planning Commission meeting, there were 2 of us who showed up. And that was me and somebody from Avinity. And I raised the issue, not on behalf of the CAC, because I didn't think I had any authority to do that, but on behalf of being a neighbor at Lake Rainovia, about this traffic study. And during that conversation, I never heard anything. So I'm just asking for education here. I'm not questioning, I'm asking for education. Like that the CAC, our CAC had recommended anything, or yeah, we've already heard about that. It was just kind of a non-event. And so now I've gotten the notice from the Board of Supervisors, there's going to be a Board of Supervisors public hearing about the same development. And I'm thinking to myself, for rezoning, should I bother? Should I bother even educating my constituents, if you will, about this? Because I felt like nothing was even taken into consideration about that. So I'm not sure, like, this is back to our role. If the CAC questions this, and it's in our minutes and stuff, does this ever get translated to a planning commission meeting? Does it get translated to the Board of Supervisors, other than obviously we have representatives here on our panel, of course, on our committee. So how does that work?
Would you like me to take that?
Anybody? Sure.
Yeah, and if I say something incorrect, Tori can correct me. But essentially what happens is all of the comments received from the public, regardless of their source, are communicated to the Planning Commission as attachments to the application. And I dutifully read every single comment. Now, in what they've started doing that's actually even a little more useful than that is putting a link in our actual agenda. So it'll say like the CAC discussed this, click here to listen to the meeting. So you can not only read the comments, but you could actually, actually attend the meeting if you forgot what was said, or you just are unfamiliar with that CAC, like say it's somebody else's CAC and you didn't attend it, you want to hear what they said.
Right.
So that does happen. Sometimes we're looking at it. I don't want to get into specifics of this particular proposal right now because
I'm using that as an example.
sure, of
Process.
course. So sometimes, we'll have, comments where from somebody who might say like traffic's an issue, or this was, this development is too much traffic. And then we'll have a letter from VDOT saying this traffic will not substantially increase, congestion in the corridor, blah, blah, blah. And so, we get a lot of information from different sources, and then we have to kind of use our judgment. And in terms of the traffic study during COVID, I mean, in those kind of cases, you could theoretically look to an earlier study for another development where it wasn't COVID. I mean, but I do, all I can say is for myself, I do read all of the comments. And I will also say that it is very common for information that sways my vote one way or the other to come from outside of staff, to come from the general public, when I say general public, I mean like the people who live in the area, or they're telling me some unique condition that wasn't required to be reported, but actually is really germane to the decision. So, the same is for the Board of Supervisors. We make our recommendation to them. Sometimes they agree with the Planning Commission, sometimes they do not. But they also go through the comments as well. And then I sometimes have conversations back and forth. If a citizen sends me a lot of complicated comments, I might ask them more, and we might actually have a dialogue. Sometimes even get together and have a phone conversation so I can understand. But I don't know if the other supervisors or staff want to comment, but in general, just to summarize and stop talking too much, the CAC is yet another layer of an advisory body that the Planning Commission looks at. And you exist because the county has decided to channel our growth into what's called the development area. And of course, that has the potential to cause conflict because we're trying to squeeze a lot of people and things into an area and into areas that were not originally laid out, like you might lay out a city with a grid pattern. And if we could even get into the whole dynamics of the landscape of Avon and 5th Street, we've got a lot of hills. So we've got a lot of potential for erosion. A grid pattern doesn't work so great there. So there are a lot of challenges of trying to create a more urban landscape out of a suburban landscape, and trying to do it in a harmonious way and add those things that we need. So I'll stop sounding like I'm running for the Board of Supervisors and shut up now. But I just wanted to assure you that it is very valuable to me. And if you ever feel like your comments aren't being taken seriously or listened to, you're all free to comment and call us individually as well. But that's sort of my 2 many cents.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I just really wanted to be sure that beyond my individual role, that the CAC's comments, that I thought we had a pretty thoughtful discussion about that particular issue, that they were taken into consideration. So there's a mechanism for that they are forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Is what you're saying, the process. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Karen, is the CAC's input more meaningful to the Planning Commission if we sort of formally take a vote on being concerned about something, or is
Well, that's a
like
good
capturing the discussion sufficient?
I would say that if it seemed like a lot of people in the discussion, and I would say in the room, but now we're just in virtual land together, had a strong position or feeling in some particular direction, that taking a vote or taking a position is helpful.
Okay.
Because that might tell us like, okay, not only did this person raise this concern, but actually the other 8 people agreed with them, that actually there was support for that notion. Otherwise, you might just be hearing like one person commented this and one person
Right.
commented that. Now I can tell you that there's been cases like, not with this CAC so much as, but like with Crozet, where they've been struggling with growth issues for longer because they were kind of like the first model for CAC, and they have sometimes all voted to take a certain position, and then the planning commission has gone the other direction. So I just want to put that out there to just let you know that, we can all agree to disagree, just like the board doesn't always follow our wise counsel. So, sometimes we feel like you guys, like who's listening? But honestly, if you have a position and you really want to tell us which way you're all leaning, that would certainly be helpful. Or if you're all divided, like half of you felt
Right.
X way and half of you felt Y way.
Yeah, that's really useful information, Karen. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like often we sort of coalesce around a fairly common position, but taking maybe the time to craft a statement we all agree on and really sort of formalizing that. So it's a succinct soundbite of here's how the CAC feels would be a good best practice for us moving forward.
I agree. Yes.
David, do you want to take some time out of the basketball game and chime in?
Thank you. Tori, I saw that Crozet finished up their master plan recently. And I believe Pantops was before them. The Southern and Western was 2015. Do we have a timetable on when we'll be looking at the Southern and Western master plan?
Not at the moment, in part given that the long range planning team is the primary team to work on the comprehensive plan update. I expect that will take up a significant portion of the team's time. But in the future, it will need to be put on the CDD work program and have staff time and resources allocated to it, but don't have a specific timeline at the moment.
Are we next in line, or is one of the newer CACs up Route 29 ahead of us? Do we know? Is there any sort of order yet?
I'm not sure offhand.
I can look into that for you guys.
I would like to reinforce that because we were never given a chance to help craft the master plan for the Southern and Western neighborhoods. That was created by staff, and Rick Randolph kept suggesting many times that we have an opportunity to actually work on our own and not just accept what staff gave us. So I think we've long been searching for that opportunity.
I can bring that up at the chair, the vice chair and planning director meet every Monday at 4. And I will bring that up at our next meeting and work on that. I will tell you guys that for the last 3 years, just even as a planning commissioner, I was told we're about to start the comp plan. So, I hope we really start the comp plan because, finishing that obviously is germane to when you guys will be able to get started. So I've asked staff to help work with me on a more definitive schedule for the comp plan so that we can understand when all these pieces will come together. And then we would be able to get to a schedule for your master plan update. I'm very much about like, let's get it done. Let's have a schedule person. So I'll pledge to work on that and try to get something organized. I'm not in charge of budgets or anything, but I am in charge of asking questions.
David, I made a bet with myself that you'd ask that specific question, and I won. Robert, you're up next.
Tori, You mentioned small area plans, I think just in passing, and we didn't really see too much information in your presentation. I wonder how many small area plans exist, and specifically in the southern and western neighborhoods area is part one of my question. And the second part is I seem to recall some years ago that this committee endorsed the idea of a small area plan for the Mill Creek area, kind of the intersection of Mill Creek Drive and Avon, and also extending to the east from Mill Creek Drive to Route 20. Haven't heard much about it since, so I presume there's been no action on that, but I'd like to maybe give you a chance, if you would, offer some comments on the small area plans. Where do they exist, and what's the outlook for possibly doing more with that in that area, in that activity?
So at the moment, I believe the only adopted small area plan in the county is for the Rio 29 area, which also then resulted in the form-based code that was written for that area based on the small area plan. In the Southern and Western Master Plan, I believe there is a few sentences with a recommendation that talks about a small area plan for that Mill Creek area. And I could check with another coworker who was more involved in the background on that, but my understanding is it was meant to be focused especially on county-owned properties and the institutional areas that are designated for how those might be used in the future. And the small area plan hasn't been started, but my understanding is there was some engagement around the high school center too, which would fall within that small area, but do not have a timeline on a full small area plan at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think this committee would want to kind of keep track of that. It involved not only the land where the county-owned land where the high school center is, but there were some commercial, there was a storage area proposed in the Mill Creek commercial area that was part of that area of concern. So, and then now there's the Water Authority is building their facility there. So there is activity. So I think this area still deserves some attention, and I would like to see certainly that somewhere down the road that perhaps that area is looked at. So just a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. I think that's a really salient point. Any more saved rounds on this topic before we pivot? Well, thanks again, Tori. Our next agenda item is updates from the Planning Commission and supervisors. So I'll turn it over to the three of you.
Karen, you want to go first?
I'm happy to. Or Karen, you want to go first? Sorry.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm really short, literally and figuratively. I don't have anything in particular for the Sam Miller District to report on, except just sort of a minor element that the Planning Commission worked on, a resolution to clean up language around private roads within developments. The county doesn't have responsibility for maintaining those, and sometimes when there is a private road within a development, it gets confusing later on. Say the road, becomes degraded, and the community comes to the county to, or to VDOT to fix the road, and it's not our responsibility. So that language has gone forward for cleanup. And then the only other thing that I would have is that you all got an email from Andy Reidelbach about Avon Street development. And I don't know why I closed my browser. I was trying to pay attention to this meeting on Avon Street, but I just asked him if he had CC'd the CAC this evening about that, and he had. So I guess just check your inboxes for more updates on that development going to the Board of Supervisors. And with that, I'll turn it over to the supervisors.
Thanks. Jim, you want to go next?
Sure. I mean, do you want me to choose any particular order here? we've had 2 meetings, well, 3 meetings, but the first was just organizational. I will say that the first meeting is important. It's a meeting which we discussed committee assignments. While there have not been any additions besides Emma at this point, I'm looking, there you are. Hi, Emma. To this committee, I think there are some additional possible applicants coming in. So stay tuned on that. Then on the following week, big items to mention perhaps are ongoing issues with CenturyLink. I hope you've heard that we've tried to inject ourselves a little bit, and even though we don't have a whole lot of authority over CenturyLink, to call attention to various problems that people have had with service by CenturyLink throughout the county. And that is ongoing. There's still more work to be done. And then with respect to zoning text amendments, we did pass a change to the ordinances so that certain bonus density factors that get weighed in development won't be allowed if they're already required by law. So they're just cleaning up language in advance of eventually getting to the point where the bonus densities and the proper languages will be updated for the new plan. So that's pretty much all I would highlight from the meeting on the 12th. Then we met yesterday on the 19th. And we did talk about the comprehensive plan, in particular about the need for a working group of broad representation of citizens who would help with this plan. And it would be very intense, a lot of meetings to help develop the plan and to make sure that it has that broad public feedback. As a matter of fact, there is a discussion that is probably going to go forward that this committee would actually be compensated for their work. And this is something I do want to bring up to the city because it's a pilot idea. Whether it proves to be particularly beneficial at bringing equity and diversity and a better representation to that process may down the road impact how we deal with CICs and other committees. At this point, it's just for that working group that we were talking about this. I don't know, do you want to take Southwoods, Donna, or?
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right, thanks. So I'll do that, and then I'm going to come back to a couple of personnel things. So yeah, the big thing yesterday with Southwood was the proposal to have a project manager on county staff. It was proposed as a 2-year, $170,000 for the 2 years funding requirement. And then during the discussion, it came out that it'll be a minimum of 2 years, but the $170,000 is fixed. So the cost to the county will not exceed that. And what this basically was designed to do was kind of create a funnel, kind of like an hourglass, because right now what we've got are a lot of different outside entities that are communicating with a lot of different people within county staff. So this project manager will become the one-stop shopping, so to speak, for people outside of the county to use that as their funnel for information back and forth. I actually raised some questions about it, not because I don't support Southwood, but there's appears to be sort of a continual additional expense aspect to Southwood that we keep seeing. And I asked for, and there was support from the supervisors to get the county to give us, excuse me, a report. I'm so sorry. That kind of sets when Southwood Phase 1 was approved, the expectation of financial commitment by the county would be, where we are today, and what that variance is, so that we're able to actually pay closer attention to what the ultimate cost is going to be, knowing that right now we are just on Phase 1, and there are multiple phases of Southwood that will come forward. There have been some additional expenses that have come up. The septic drain fields, the amount of contaminated soil was substantially larger than initially reported, which has increased costs. Leaking storage fuel tanks for the heaters in Southwood is another expense. So again, I totally support Southwood. I think it's a project that is necessary and it's long overdue for that demographic segment of our population. But I do believe that we need to have some sort of a sense of what the actual costs are reaching. Another thing that we talked about was establishing a transit governance board for a region rather than more of sort of a voluntary collaboration. And there was a lot of discussion on changing the process from the more fixed routes that CAT has used. Jaunt has always been a little bit more flexible to really looking at more of an on-demand model that would be in the Rio 29 North, over in Pantops, and a third area that's not proposed for right now, but in the future would be the Monticello area. The idea being that this would be sort of your, it'd be government provided rather than commercial ride sharing, but the ability for people to have much more flexibility in the north and south of 250 and Pantops area, for example, or over in 29, as well as connecting people from their local houses to the main feeder lines to the more established fixed CAT routes. So what we're trying to do is bring transit transportation into the century that we're at today, as opposed to the last century where it was a much more of a fixed route. And also they're looking to increase the frequency of the fixed route buses, because one of the real detriments to trying to use public transportation right now is the amount of time it takes to get from point A to point B, especially when you have connections you have to make. And if you miss a bus, you may be 30 minutes or an hour until you can get the next one. So I thought it was a really good report that we got that we were able to work with there. I want to go back a little bit to your discussion with regard to individual input versus CAC input. And it's really important that the Board of Supervisors, when we have to make legislative decisions, that we get as much input as we can from community members, the CACs, obviously we get it from applicants, from county staff, planning commission, and ultimately it comes to the Board of Supervisors. And there are times where we have political considerations that we have to make, or broader county considerations rather than more local community considerations that sometimes result in decisions being made that any of those other groups that are providing input to the board may disagree with. The role that you as both individuals and as a CAC play is invaluable in the process, but ultimately it is a community advisory committee and the Board of Supervisors makes the final decision. And it's really, I think, helpful for everyone to just remember that there are various roles that people play. And then if I could turn back to a little bit of personnel, I want to welcome Emma to the CAC. She reached out to me somewhere between a year and 2 years ago and just said, I really want to get more involved in the community. And so as she mentioned, she's already on another committee. And she saw this as an ability to learn more about land use, comprehensive plan, zoning, all of those sorts of things. So I really appreciate, Emma, you stepping up and being a part of this. Also introduced Fred Missel, although he's not here tonight, unfortunately. As many of you know, Rick Randolph served 4 years as a planning commissioner, 4 years as a supervisor, and then 2 years as a planning commissioner again. And he did that in large measure because I had no background in land use when I got elected to the board. And so he really has been a mentor for me. It actually happened to just be coincidental that it was 2 years. He resigned effective December 31st. And it was really important, I think, to get a planning commissioner to fill that position without there being a gap. And Fred Missel, who actually lives in the Samuel Miller district, but who knows, with redistricting, we may shift him over into Scottsville. He's really close on the boundary. He's worked with the Architectural Review Board. He currently works at UVA Foundation, has an exceptional reputation, and I think he'll be a great addition to the CAC. He will fill the 2 years of the unexpired term of Rick Randolph because, the planning commissioners are generally appointed for 4 years and they coincide with the term of the supervisors. So whenever the next Scottsville supervisor term begins, then that will be when another planning commissioner for the Scottsville district is appointed. And then finally, in the personnel, I need to find someone willing to serve on the equalization board. This board meets starting in about March, and they work. And Jim Andrews raised his hand, and he's bidding on that as well.
I'm not volunteering. I'm saying Samuel Miller District also needs a representative to the Board of Equalization.
Right, that's what I meant. So they start working in about March. Their work is done generally pretty quickly, although potentially somewhat intensely over a relatively brief period of time. But so if anyone here, and I saw all those hands raised for volunteering to be chair and co-chair, would really be appreciative of anyone who would have the interest in serving on that. It's really an important position. And Jim and I both, we need to find someone to fill our open positions. And then the last thing on personnel, I want to apologize for missing the December meeting. I had every intention of being here, but they had a farewell for Amelia McCauley. And honestly, and truth be told, it's the first time I'd been in a social event in almost 2 years with any number, and I just lost track of time. So I do apologize. I know there was a very important presentation with ABC, and I will ensure that I am up to speed on that. And I do apologize for missing that meeting. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Donna. And also congratulations on your election of as chair of the Board of Supervisors. Our next agenda item is topics that we want to hear covered in future meetings. And I think we've got a couple already, but any more would be appreciated. MK.
I actually don't necessarily have a new topic, but I just wanted to say something really quickly about what Donna was saying. So, well, first of all, I was very confused at first about why Rick was leaving, or when Rick was leaving. You missed the last meeting, Donna, but we did have something that we put together for not Rick, but somebody help me. Right. And with Liz, and then I don't think that James and I knew that Rick was retiring midstream. And so we did not have something really nice for him. And I hope we can maybe do something retrospectively. So maybe we put that on the agenda for the next meeting, or we think about that. But Fred happens to be my old neighbor. So I will just say that I agree with you. I think he's great, and hopefully we'll welcome him next time. So,
well,
yeah, thanks for. Go ahead, Don.
I was just going to say, MK, thank you. And it purely was coincidental that it just happened to be the end of the year. But Rick had let me know some time ago that 10 consecutive years of working as either or both as a planning commissioner and a supervisor, he was ready for a break. And I did want to make sure that we did not have a gap as a planning commissioner, because it is such one of those very important roles. So Rick and I kind of kept that on the QT until it looked like we were able to get everything lined up, so as not to cause any undue consternation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, MK, for bringing that up. It did catch me by surprise, and I absolutely agree. He's been, a member of the 5th and Avon CAC since it first started. So I agree that doing something for him would be really nice. Thoughts for agenda topics for future meetings?
I have a thought. First of all, thank you, Donna, for the shout out. That was nice. So as I mentioned, I'm also on the Natural Heritage Committee, and Tori in her presentation mentioned the BAP, the Biodiversity Action Plan. So if you all would ever be interested in learning about that plan, or about what's going on at Biscuit Run, we have a lot of projects we're working on in the area. So I'd love to, I can share some of that side to it, if that's of interest.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, I feel like Biscuit Run is one of those topics that's always on the short list of things we never get tired of hearing the latest on. Great. Does anybody have any other feedback or comments on anything we've discussed tonight? Well, with that, I move to adjourn the meeting. Seconded by Craig. Thank you. The CAC's next.
Rob's got his hand up. I'm sorry to interrupt, Jim.
Oh, thank you. I pulled up the run of show and I missed a hand. I was covering you up. I'm sorry, Robert.
Thank you, Donna. I just wanted to let the committee know that I also serve as president of the board of directors of the Mill Creek HOA, and I just want to let the board, this committee know that after about a year's hiatus and discussions, it looks like we're going to get back on track with some discussions of the easement for a greenway that might ultimately connect Biscuit Run with the Fifth Street Station area. And Tim Padalino, who I believe his formal title, Donna, is Parks Planning, Chief of Parks Planning, if I'm something along those lines.
I think that works.
Sorry?
I think that works.
Yeah, okay. He's fairly new to Parks and Rec, and I've met with him, and it seems like he's going to bring some energy to this process, and it looks like we're making progress to potentially have a meeting, a Zoom meeting sometime next month with my board and possibly the Foxcroft board and the county. And I think that's a positive development. So I know we've talked about this in the CAC from time to time. And just want to let you know that after a giant pause, it looks like we're at least on track to get discussions going again. So just wanted to offer that as an information item for the committee.
Great, Robert. Thank you so much for that update. I appreciate hearing it. I've got a not very secret 30-year plan to connect Walnut Creek with Biscuit Run. It's only like 10 properties we got to convince. MK?
This is an ministerial suggestion, but I think when I was first brought on to the CAC 2+ years ago, that we had like sort of a introduction of everyone. I know we've been really good about introducing our new members, but it might be nice to introduce ourselves to the new members. And maybe not necessarily tonight, but maybe at the next meeting where, basically we have an opportunity to say, because I do think it's interesting, like that Robert is the president of his HOA, I'm the president of my HOA, that kind of thing. And, Emma, we all know Emma now, but Emma doesn't necessarily know us.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're the right chair to make that happen.
Okay.
Donna?
Yeah, and I just want to express appreciation to Rob because he's really the icebreaker that has put the crack in the logjam, getting all my metaphors mixed up in here. That really has helped initiate the re-engagement of the county with the community on this. And so Rob, I just want to say thank you for the patience and the work that you've done on that.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Robert.
And while we're saying thanks to you, James and Craig, for shepherding through the meetings, and MK too for being vice chair.
Craig does the hard work, and Roger, you've stepped up several times to help out too. So yeah, I definitely appreciate the community we live in and how much everybody cares about it and volunteers to pitch in. It's a great place to be. All right, we'll let that be the last word. The CAC's next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, February 17th. Opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting will be posted at a later date in accordance with Emergency Ordinance 20 TAC Alpha 16 and open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. I adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye.